So another big topic of conversation in the past year related to this industry has been the pricing of pharmaceuticals. How vulnerable do you think the rare disease business model is to legislative efforts and governmental pressure to control the cost of prescription drugs?
Well, look, I think any pharmaceutical of any type is now under scrutiny, right, around pricing and price increases. Okay, so I think with rare diseases, as I mentioned previously, a lot of times these are technologies that are disease modifying. They can have a profound effect on a disease, ideally curative approaches, and for those, I think a high price point for a small or low prevalence disease area that has hundreds or a few thousand patients is justified and supportive and is not going to break the industry. I think there's a lot more money spent on incremental improvements in disease areas where I think that you got a lot more, if I'll call it, wastefulness in the healthcare system. So I think the rare disease orphan drugs tend to be focused on more specialty areas. Now, as more companies enter into these rare disease areas, as there's more competition, not everybody can sustain that high price point, right? We talked about Duchenne. If there are 6 to 12 drugs approved, not every one of those drugs is going to be able to charge $300,000 to $500,000 per patient, especially if you start looking at combination therapy. So I think that negotiation will continue. I think FDA approval is the beginning of the dialogue of how insurers will reimburse and pay, and they're going to focus more on value. What are the outcomes that you're providing? And you are going to see more of this pay for performance, trying to figure out, what is a fair negotiation for a price. And in some ways, this favors companies that have the courage of their convictions in their therapy. So if let's take a gene therapy that is suggesting a cure for a rare disease. Well, if they want to charge a high price point and they say, we will rebate you back any patient that you have evidence that it did not respond, okay? Well, if the company is convinced that 90% of the patients will be curative, they're fine with that negotiation. Yeah. If they think, well, we barely got approval and this is only going to have 40% of the patients respond, well, then they have to figure out something creative, or they're going to end up giving a lot more money back to the insurers. So I think, and that's a simplistic way. There's a lot of different ways to tier and structure these agreements. But I think you're going to see more of a dialogue. And at the end of the day, it becomes a simple calculation. A company that can get price X for treating all patients that's lower, right, versus a structured agreement of pay for performance where they get a higher price point, right, but they're only going to be able to get reimbursed on a subset of patients. Well, they're going to do that calculation. The insurance companies are going to do that calculation, and they're going to have to arrive at what they believe is the right number. And at the end of the day, it's if the company can deliver more value, they'll get paid more than the insurance company is expecting to pay. And if the company doesn't deliver that value to the patient, then that contract is going to favor the insurance company. And that probably is the right equalizer to at least minimize some of the abuses that might be occurring.
So the scrutiny will continue, but basically it's shifting to a perception of value and not the cost itself.
Yeah, and I think also you're going to start seeing a differentiation between disease modifying that treat the underlying cause of the disease and again, like an anti-inflammatory and anti-fibrotic, which add value, but those are drugs that can treat a broad variety of diseases. You take Duchenne genetic technology and it treats a subset, as in Sarepta's drug. These other modalities can treat every patient because it's not working at the genetic basis of that disease.
If you want to hear more from Chris and other thought leaders in the orphan drug industry, make sure to join us on April 20th and 21st in Washington, D.C. at the World Orphan Drug Congress USA 2017. Thank you.